You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey Vet Rehabbers, Happy New Year guys. Awesome to have you guys for the very first podcast of 2021. And they and I are going to be doing this one together, and we just want to wish you guys a really, really wonderful and successful 2021. So because most of you, I hope, are setting some goals and you're looking at your year, trying to work out exactly how you're going to get everything fitted in for 2021, we thought it would be a really good podcast to chat about schedules. So obviously in online pet health, we have got loads of things that need to happen, and all of us do things differently. So we thought that Ané and I would chat about how we set our schedules, and we hope that our tips and advice can help you guys to be more productive, to get that work-life balance that you want, decrease your stress, and be in control of your guys' time and your lives. Hey Ané, thanks for joining me.
Hi Meg, hi everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah. So this is obviously a topic you know that I'm quite passionate about, because if I think back to the days when I had my practice, and even in the early days of online pet health, you know, we had so many things that we needed to do. And only when I started actually scheduling and really using my time more effectively did I start to actually get so much more done. And I remember just having this long list of things that I needed to do, and it just never ended. And I actually remember Michelle once, you know, because Michelle is the kind of person, and a lot of you guys know Michelle. She's the one who hosts all the webinars. She is a very organized person. And Mish used to have all these lists, and she used to say to me, but my list never ends. It just keeps adding in. And this is our lives, guys. This is what happens, is our lists never end. There is always something to do. And what's really important is that we get the things that need to be done first, and the most important things. So hopefully the tips and advice that we're going to share is really, really going to be helpful to you. And obviously when you joined Online Pet Health, this is something that you also had to really get the handle of, because it's very different juggling all these different things in practice. But I think that because we obviously have that experience with practice, we've got lots of things that we can share that we've done now to help us to be more productive.
Yeah, definitely. But like there are differences obviously between how we need to manage our time now and how we managed our time when we were in practice. But the same thing pulls throughout your whole life. It doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. You can struggle with your time management. I think especially in today's life, many of us feel like we're just too busy. Like there's just not enough time to get everything done that we need to do. You might feel like you don't have enough time, that there's too much on your to-do list, that you don't have time for your kids or for the things that you love to do. You don't have time to spend with your own dogs. You can feel like you're always falling short all the time. And then you can start to think that there's something wrong with you, because you see other people that are managing fine, you know, they look fine, and on the inside you are overwhelmed and crumbling with everything that lies in front of you that needs to get done. So it doesn't really matter where you are in your life, what you're doing. Managing your time, managing how you work with, how you prioritize things in your life is always going to be important. It's always going to be relevant. So getting some skills and some understanding to avoid that feeling of overwhelm, to avoid that feeling of I'm too busy, there's just not enough time, is always important. So this is something that I've really struggled with. Working from home, I don't know how many of you have experienced that during lockdown. Working from home is really hard, especially when you have little people that need your attention. So balancing everything can be quite challenging. So I'm quite keen to jump into this. We all have 24 hours in a day, so it's about how we choose to spend that time that is important. No one has more time or less time than you do. We all have 24 hours.
Yeah, and I think that that feeling of overwhelm often comes, and if I think back to myself, is when I used to just store everything in my head. And I think, I remember when I was consulting, I started a habit of having a little pad and a piece of paper, and I'd start to write things down because I would speak to a client and I'd be busy with them, and I'd think, oh, I must remember to send them this. And then I would think that I would be able to remember it. And then the day would go by and I'd be like, what was I supposed to do? I can't remember. And then there was just the underwater treadmill, and there was this and that. And you store everything in your brain, and then before you know it, you just become so overwhelmed. And then you start to spin because you can't remember it. And you're thinking, oh, like, who am I going to let down now? Because now I've forgotten. And they've actually done studies, and you can only remember 7 things. So once you go past 7 things, you start to forget. And that makes you even feel worse. So when you forget something that you were supposed to do, that stresses me out. I don't know about you, Ané, but it stresses me out even more. So when I let somebody down, then I get even more stressed. And so it's been really helpful for me just to like actually say, it's okay, Megan, you don't have to remember everything. Like, don't make myself remember anything. Just actually write it down, like put it down somewhere. And what's really great about iPhones, if you guys have got iPhones, is there's that little note section. There's like a little section, and I'm sure the Samsungs and all the other phones have got them. But you can actually just on your phone, just quickly stop wherever you are and just quickly write that down, and then try and work out when are you going to do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, I agree. Like that feeling of you were supposed to do something and you forgot, and you often it can often be for a client, as you said, that you need to send them something or do something for them, and then that's it's more than feeling bad. That has an impact on your business because you're creating a not so great user experience, or what is that experience called, Meg?
A customer experience.
Customer experience.
Yes. Yeah. Because you didn't deliver.
Then you have not. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you always want to be able to give your customers a really good experience. And this is one of the ways that we can fail at that. So there needs to be a plan in place. But it also happens in our personal lives. Your husband asks you to do something, or you need to do something for the kids, or your dad needs something, and it's not at the top of your priority list and you forget. So and that has an impact on your work life as well. Like when your home life is not great, your work life is not great. So having that balance is really important. Yes, there are so many different ways that we can do it. I have to say, like writing on a piece of paper and using the notebook on my phone are not my favorites because they get lost. So like for me, it's even worse because then I take it out of my brain and I put it somewhere where I'm not going to go back to and forget about. So I love to use OneNote, which syncs between all my devices, and it has my to-do lists on it. So when I think of something, I can log into OneNote anywhere, and I always have it open because that's where I'm working from. So that's my notepad that I love to use. Nothing's going missing.
And there are quite a lot of those type of to-do list apps. So you can have a look. I mean, you guys just got to work out what's going to be right for you. But let's just backtrack a little bit. So first of all, we've got all these things in our brain, right? And we need to get them down somewhere, all right? So we've got, I mean, there are loads of options, but we're going to chat about 3. So the one is just to dump them all on a piece of paper and have a to-do list. The second one is to have sort of a modified to-do list, and we're going to chat more about that. And then the third one, I think, is how you work, and is like a quadrant system. So let's chat about the sort of the old traditional type of to-do list. So for those of you that are interested in we actually have this in the free platform as well as in the business basics section of our members platform. There is a lecture that I've done on time maximization training, and we actually have a whole lot of downloads. So you guys can go check those out. We'll put the link for the free platform, and those of you that are members, you could just log in into the members platform. But that to-do list, one of the things I hate about it is that what generally happens is you have this long to-do list, and what happens is you want to cross things off easily. So like the things that you can, because you want to make that list shorter, right? And so what tends to happen is you look on the list for the easiest things to do, and then you do those and you cross them off, but they're not necessarily the most important things that you need to do. And so what generally happens is the most important things take longer for you to do, and they take a whole lot more effort. And the quick and easy things are usually not as important, not all the time. So that list, you just keep, and you know, I've chatted to a few vet rehabbers, and one of the things I always laugh about is that they waste a whole lot of more time by rewriting their list. So you write your list and then you cross it all off, and then the next day you rewrite the list because you don't want all those things that are crossed out. And that's obviously also not a good use of your time. But that's a problem, is that you're not prioritizing all the things that are important. And then what generally tends to happen is you don't get that productivity, whether it be in your practice or whether in your personal life, because you're only doing all the easy things. So I don't know if you found that too, Ané.
Yeah, absolutely. So I create a weekly to-do list for myself, and everything on that list needs to get done in the week. And then obviously there are some things are exceptions and will carry on into the next week. But in that way, it helps me to have kind of a deadline on what has to happen. And then I also prioritize things. So you mentioned the quadrant system, Megs, and that's how I like to figure out what I need to do first, because basically what you do is you divide your tasks into 4 quadrants. Urgent and important, those are the things you have to deal with immediately. They're your kind of emergencies, but it's also the patient that's sitting right in front of you right now. That is urgent and important. You need to work with that patient. And then the second quadrant is your not urgent but important stuff. So that is really our most important quadrant. It's the stuff that we always put off because it's not urgent, but it's important. So it's bigger things that take effort, that take brain power. So in practice, that's writing your notes and sending your invoices. It's not urgent. It doesn't have to happen immediately, but it has to happen. It's really important for your business, for your customer. And other things like planning, organizing, creating systems, those are all not urgent but important things that fit into that second quadrant. And if you and then the third quadrant would be urgent things but not important. So those are things that are coming up immediately, like phone calls, answering emails, someone walks in, and those are kind of disruptive things. What happens on your cell phone, right? They're not urgent, and they are urgent because they're happening right now, but they're not important. You don't have to deal with them immediately, but they end up disrupting your important work that you're doing. So your cell phone is the enemy. And then the fourth quadrant is not urgent and not important. They're the little things that we do instead of actually doing the important things. They're our procrastination to-dos, right? Is how I like to think of them. So when you look at your to-do list, dividing them up into the quadrants helps you to say, this is where I need to start. This is what's most important, and then move on to the next things. You don't touch anything in quadrant 4 until everything in quadrant 1, 2, and 3 is done and completed. So that helps me a lot to not procrastinate and to actually just do what's important.
Yeah, so one of the things that I like to do, and I like that system because it's sort of similar, but one of the downfalls, I think, with the to-do list and that system is that you don't know how much time things take. And so what I like to do is I like to divide my to-do list actually into time slots. So something that takes 2 minutes, something that takes 5 minutes, something that takes 15 minutes, and then more than 30 minutes or more. Because when you have 5 minutes or 2 minutes, let's say you have a client and they're late, all right? Then you look at your to-do list and you look at, I've got 2 minutes now to do something, and you can cross something off. If you just didn't do anything, you wouldn't have got to that. And so often, actually knowing how much time you have available and what you can achieve in that time helps you get through that list. But I do like, obviously, the fact that you have the quadrant, knowing what's important and what's urgent. And how I work around that is every day I have something called my 3 musts. And so it's basically the 3 things that I need to do today. So every day I look at my to-do list and I look at those urgent and important things, and those will be my 3 musts. If it goes into one of the other quadrants, maybe I've only got 2 urgent and important, then I go into the next quadrant and pull something. And out of those 3, I have 1 that I have to do no matter what. And I write that down. And so after every single day, I feel like I've actually achieved anything, achieved something. So sometimes you have those days where you just feel like I've just done absolutely nothing. I feel when I've got those 3 musts, I think, wow, I did those 3 things. And that really makes me feel like I've had a really good, productive day.
So the way that I get around that, because yes, it's so important to actually know how much time something takes. Again, to kind of just help you feel less overwhelmed, and also so that you plan, because often I'll feel like there are all these important things to do. I know that there are big things that are going to take me 1 or 2 or 3 hours to complete. And I have a whole bunch of little things. And then I feel like there's just never going to be enough time to get everything done. So I time block. So from my quadrant, I take it into my calendar, and I block out time in my calendar. And that is actually the only thing that helps me feel like I actually have enough time, because I can see it in front of me. And then what I'll do is I'll take my quadrant 3, my important but not urgent things, and I'll put all of those in the mornings, because that's my best time. That's my brain's most productive time. I'll do all of them in the mornings, and then the other stuff gets scheduled into the rest of the day. And then I know that the best part of me is going to the most important things. They're coming first, and then I get to the other things. And I do that in a weekly block. So it's not a day-to-day thing. That also allows me to be a little bit flexible, because life happens and then something goes wrong, and then I don't get to something that's on the schedule or on the list. And this way I can say, okay, well, I didn't get to it today, but there is some space tomorrow or the next day, and I'm just going to shuffle some things around and it'll work. So seeing it like that visually for me is really helpful. And again, that's that's putting things into time, so that I can see this is going to take an hour, this is going to take 2 hours. And then having that list of 2-minute, 5-minute tasks separately that doesn't go into my calendar means when I finish something early, or I have some wiggle room somewhere, then I start doing those things. So the time blocking is something you taught me, Meg, in your time maximization training, and that is actually the thing that helps me the most.
And what's so amazing, so that's exactly what I do. So those 3 musts, I will go time block. So in my day, I work out when I've got space, and I'll make sure that I've time blocked for those. And then I'll fit in some of the other stuff too. And if I get those gaps, then I'll do some extras. But what you realize when you start time blocking, right, is that what you thought you could achieve in a day, you can't. And so, what I used to think is like, I'd have this list of things, and I think this is what I'm doing today. And then I'd get to the end of the day in disappointment, because I felt like I didn't get through all the things. And then when I started time blocking, I started to realize I was being completely unreasonable with myself, expecting myself to do all those things in one day, because there just isn't enough time. And then, when you realize this is what I have to do, and this is what I'm able to achieve today, then at the end of the day, you feel like, oh, I did it. And you actually start to feel better about things. You start doing the things that you need to do, which are priority, and you don't feel like you're not achieving things. So we actually have to be kinder to ourselves. Another thing that I really learned from the time blocking is, when somebody phones and just says, oh, please, can you help me with this quickly now? Or something, could you go and fetch this or do something? When you have time blocked and you realize, actually, no, I really can't, it actually teaches you to say no to things. Because this is the thing, is that when you're continually saying yes to things, you're actually saying no to other things, because you're using up that time. And when you schedule your time, you realize what you can and what you can't do, and what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing.
So really prioritizing, realizing what's important to you and what is not important to you. what I mean by that is kind of like, if you think about the 80-20 rule, and we have a blog on that Meg wrote, there are things that are going to benefit you, benefit your practice, that are going to move you forward, that are going to move the needle, and there are things that aren't. Doesn't mean you don't have to do those things, but you can't compromise your time on the needle moving work, because otherwise where are your business going to go? Where are your clients going to go? So an example would be, if you have you book patients in on the hour, and you do a 50-minute consultation, and you give yourself 10 minutes to write the notes and to get ready for the next patient. What happens in those 10 minutes is, one, you run late with your first patient because you end up having a conversation with the client. Then there's a phone call you need to deal with. Then your next client is there, done. Or you have to run to the bathroom, or. So maybe 50% of the time you're not getting your notes written in that 10-minute block. And then you've worked from 8 in the morning until 5 or 5:30, and you have 50% of your notes written. If you're lucky, that's on a good day. For me, at least, that was a good day. I'd have 50% of the notes written, and then I would have to do the rest at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. Or when I was consulting until 8 in the evening, I'd have to sit and do it at 8 in the evening. That's not really good for your family life. It's not good for your mental health. And then you're also not giving your best self to those notes. You're not making sure that your brain is at its top. You're functioning well, you're writing well, you're explaining things well in that report. So that is completely a not urgent, but a very important, essential part of your business, an essential part of your customer experience, and an essential part of how you communicate with vets, with your owners, with yourself, with your team. So there needs to be another way to do it, so that you're not putting that pressure on yourself, because that's a daily pressure. I know some weeks you get to the end of the week, and then you go home with like a stack of notes that you need to go and write. So that's not a good way to do it. And finding different systems and different ways. And that's all it's about, is recognizing that that's not the best way, and then finding a different way that's going to work for you in your practice and for your clients.
And then obviously there's also the mental stress, right? When you have not written your notes now, that starts to add up as you're thinking, I mustn't forget that, I mustn't forget that, I mustn't forget that throughout the day. And if you block your time and you schedule time well enough that you're actually able to do everything in that time, you won't have all that mental stress, which is dreadful. I mean, for me, I hate that overwhelm feeling. It's dreadful.
Yeah, I can't do the overwhelm thing either, because then I just can't. Like, I can't think, I can't function. I know some people love to have deadlines and stress, and not really stress, but they need to feel like there's something's happening. They thrive in that high pressure environment. I crumble. Put me under pressure and I crumble. Like, I really don't like it. I can't think well. I feel like, that's when I feel like I can't do my work well, so. And it's important for our patients that we're calm, that we're relaxed, and that we're in a happy space when we work with them. So definitely not coming in like that.
I must say I cope well with it. I just don't like it. I mean, I think coming from a veterinary background, that kind of stress was our day-to-day life. I mean, you just never knew, so, and maybe that's one of the things I didn't like about normal veterinary. And it definitely is. Like, I hated the fact that at any time, any emergency could run through the door and it wasn't planned. Like, I like to know exactly what I'm doing throughout the day. So, and I love the days when I was doing surgery. So then I'd come in and I see my list of surgical cases, and I had it all planned out. This is what I'm going to do in what order. And then what would happen is I'd be busy with the spay, and the nurse would run in, hit by a car suddenly, and now you're in the middle of a surgery. And so, like, those kind of things, those unpredictable things. But to be honest, those things happen in life, right? So whether you're a vet or someone else, those unpredictable things. And what I do now to help with that is I always have a little buffer block. So I don't know if you do that, Ané. So I have like a half an hour buffer in the morning and a half an hour buffer in the afternoon, so that if one of those unpredictable things happen and something happens and completely throws you, at least you've got a bit of buffer and it doesn't throw your whole day out. Because when you get used to time blocking, you like everything to be, smooth and exactly on time. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not really one to kind of follow a schedule and follow a plan. So my time block gives me a sense of control, a feeling that I can do everything I need to do, but I'm not necessarily sticking in those times. I might go over or under or swap things around depending on how the day is running. But so I'm not strict with myself about it. It's a guideline for me to work from. That helps me. It is about being kind to ourselves. It is about recognizing that we are not in control and that we can only do what we can do, and that when things are not, we can't blame ourselves when we don't get to something when we've tried, because something's happened that's out of our control, that's out of our that we can't influence. So it's important to give yourself some buffer space. That's why I do it in a week, so that I can move things around in the week depending on how each day goes. I'm not restricting myself in that way. But yes, when you can walk into the practice, you have your list of patients, it feels really good to have a plan and to be able to stick to that plan. It's necessary. Well, it's not necessary for everyone, but it's definitely necessary for a lot of us.
So obviously one of the things that is really difficult for vet rehabbers is they spend 90% of their time in the consult room, and then there's all this administration. And if you own your own practice, then there's marketing and the financial side, and then all the other things that need to happen. And one of the things that I've learned from the Behind the Vet Rehab Practice podcast, I find them so interesting, because I listen to vet rehabbers and I see how they schedule their weeks. And one thing that's really come up now is vet rehabbers consulting like 12-hour days, which is hectic. But what they'll do is they'll work 3 days a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and they work like 8 in the morning till 8 at night. And then the other 2 days are just admin days. So then they just sit down and they do their admin, or they have family time scheduled in there too. And then if I think back to my practice, what I used to do is I used to have 3 full days and then 2 half days. So a Tuesday and a Thursday, I would work till 2 o'clock. And then from 2 to 5, 6, I would do all my admin. That was my admin afternoon. And you guys really need to work out a way in which you can fit in that admin. And you guys know that marketing is one of the things that I absolutely love and trying to encourage you guys to do, because when you market well, you can grow your practices. And I want all of you guys to have successful, thriving practices. And it's often one of the things where you guys just say, oh, I just don't have time for it. And I completely understand that you don't. But what happens if you just said every single day, I'm going to schedule 20 minutes to marketing, and you just found 20 minutes, or 2 afternoons a week. You said, I'm going to do 40 minutes on those 2 afternoons. And this is really what we need to be doing. We need to be looking at our practices and working out all the things that we need to be doing and finding the time for them. And one of the things I want to talk about Ané now is distractions, because I think this is one of the main reasons that we don't have time, right? Because things distract us. And I think, if I compare to when I had my practice to now, I think Facebook had only really just started when I opened my practice. So it wasn't like now like this, and we've got so many more social medias now. But these are the kind of things that distract us, right? Social media. We go on to post a post or do something, and then suddenly we go down the little social media rabbit hole. And before you know it, half an hour is gone when you could have been marketing or networking or doing something. So there's so many things that are distracting. And we need to look at those kind of things, and we need to learn to say no to them. So we need to have some boundaries with the things that distract us. So what are the things that distract you?
Well, I don't know if you guys can hear the scratching in the background, but right now the squirrel is catching my attention. My husband brought home a little baby squirrel for us, and he's starting to play now, so he's all over his cage, jumping up and down. So things like that could definitely be a distraction, but your phone is your biggest one. My 2-year-old toddler is my second biggest one. And it can really be anything. And often for me, it's also the little to-dos become a distraction. Like you say, I have to just do something little, and then when I go in to do it, I start going down a rabbit hole. Facebook is a big one. We are all on Facebook because we have to market there. It's the best place that we can do it. Coming onto Facebook with a very clear plan in mind is helpful. So I'm going to scroll down my feed for 2 minutes to see if there's something that I have to share. If there isn't, then I'm done scrolling my feed. Then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to create the post that I need to create. And all of that should take me maximum 10 minutes. When the 10 minutes is up, you need to stop. So it's about being a little bit like having a clear plan of what you need to achieve, and then setting out to achieve that. If you go on and you're not clear with yourself, you're like, I need to go create a post, but you don't know what you're creating or who you're targeting as your audience. You don't have the hashtags ready that you need to use on Instagram. You're kind of just, you just need to go create a post. Then you're going to go onto Instagram and you're going to scroll and you're going to try and find inspiration, and then it's going to be half an hour later and you still haven't created your post that you needed to create. So yeah, things like your phone, or things, social media specifically, having a clear plan when you go on there is useful. And with your phone, obviously we need to be available, but making yourself unavailable when you're dealing with your not urgent and important tasks, when you're dealing with your quadrant 2 big things, just make yourself unavailable on your phone so that you can focus on completing that, and then you can carry on from there. Those are my big things.
Yeah, and I think one of the things which I don't have anymore is, when you're working on your computer, let's say you're writing vet reports, then an email pops up and you can see the heading. So I don't have that notification on my computer anymore. And email, I think, when you're at your desk, which is not often for us, when you're behind your computer and you need to respond to other emails and stuff, you really just need to focus on what you're doing. And that little distraction of something popping up, and you might even have it as a social media thing. I know sometimes Instagram and Facebook at times have been able to pop up on my computer too, because it just completely distracts you. So you're focusing on what you do, and then you get that distraction. And then sometimes what you'll do is you'll think, oh, let me just go see what they said. And then you'll stop what you're doing, and then you're bouncing back and forth and trying to multitask. And that is also not good for you. So multitasking is one of the worst things. I know, like, people used to be really proud about multitasking, but I think now that we've got computers and phones and all these things, you actually just want to focus on what you're doing. And one of the things that I teach in my time maximization training is actually to answer your emails. So when you go into your emails, never read your emails without answering them. Okay. So you only read emails when you've got time to reply. If you read emails without replying, what's going to happen is you're going to have to go back in again later, reread the same email that you just spent early on in the day reading. So you're wasting time because you're doing it twice, and then reply again. And then what generally tends to happen is you either forget to reply, and because you read it and you think, oh, I will, and then the day goes by and you haven't replied. So I schedule time in the mornings and in the afternoons to read my emails, and I only read emails when I can reply to them. Otherwise, I don't. And it's really, especially when you've got them on your phone, that's a really bad habit. Like, you're waiting in a line and you think, oh, let me just quickly see who's emailed me. Worst thing to do, because you don't have time to reply. And then you've read it, and then also it's one of those things that just take up that brain capacity of yours, because now you're thinking, I need to. And it's fine if you read an email and you say to yourself, okay, I do have time to reply now, but I've got to think about what I'm going to say. I'm going to schedule that for tomorrow to reply. I'm going to give myself a day. That's fine. If you need that, that's okay. But it's those little ones that you just can quickly reply to, and you should be replying to, that you don't leave. Just set your time to read your emails, read them and reply to them, or schedule them into the next day that you need to reply.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't have my emails on my phone, and I close Outlook so that it can't give me notifications when I'm not in Outlook. So I open it in the morning and I open it in the afternoon, and the rest of the day it's closed and it is not talking to me. And I mean, because in the past, our email has been the way that we've communicated with each other from a business perspective. But now I'm finding more and more that we're using easier communication apps like WhatsApp. So I think that WhatsApp might become even more of a problem or a challenge, a distraction than the emails used to be, because more so now we can't just quickly reply to something that a client sends us, because we need to sit down and do it properly. But seeing that little light on our phone saying you have a WhatsApp, like, for me, I have to deal with them right now. I have to look at them right now. And then I don't reply. And it sits as a little open loop in my head that I need to go back and do that. And it's happened that I forget. And a week later, I'm like, oh, I didn't reply to that person. And because there's so much happening, you lose it in your, and you can't, you can mark it as unread, can't you? But then it flashes. So I don't like that. So that's also a really big one is WhatsApp.
Yeah, so you mentioned that open loop, and I cover this in the time maximization. And this is really what this is about, is that your brain, when you read something, your brain wants to finish it off. So when you read that email and you don't reply, your subconscious brain is actually trying to close that loop. It's trying to finish whatever that question, whatever was answered. So when you go in and you read 10 emails and don't reply, your little brain, for the rest of the day now, is trying to deal with that, on top of your consults and all the other things that you're trying to remember. So you're just overwhelming your brain. And as soon as you get, a plan and a way in which you can do this without creating all these open loops, it's amazing the clarity that you get. And it's amazing how much better you can concentrate. So I definitely have found this for myself. You mentioned before we started the podcast, you're talking about routines. So I thought maybe we could chat about like morning routines and things that you, unless you want to say something.
Let's talk about routines. So routines is one of the ways that we can help ourselves cope with life on a daily basis, right? So a morning routine can set you up for success through the day. An example would be if you have kids and you have to get them to school and then you have to get to work. Most of us end up with a morning routine, or a morning, it's not a routine, but a morning that is absolute chaos. And then once we walk into the office or into the practice, we feel like our brain is chaotic. There's no order, there's no structure. And then we have to create that coming into our workspace. So creating a morning routine that is organized and that sets you up for the best success for the day is really helpful to make sure that you bring your best self to your patients, then your best brain to your patients. So things like, for me, things that are really important is I actually need a lot of time in the morning to myself. I need to have time to shower. I want to have time to spend reading my Bible. I want to have time without my family to just be with myself, whatever it is that I'm doing. So I have a bit of a routine that I go through. And if I don't get that, I feel a little bit frazzled for the rest of the day. I'm more easily knocked off when something comes along that's unplanned, unscheduled, and I don't have time or capacity to deal with in my mind. So having that morning routine where I give myself what I need helps me to be able to cope with whatever the day brings, because it can be anything. And the same thing with setting yourself up to have a good sleep. like no screen time before bed for anyone in the family is so important, because it does affect your sleep. It does affect, it affects the quality of your sleep, and it's really hard for us to do that. So creating a routine where that's your normal helps you have success with that. And I have little ones as well that help me focus or hone in when I have to do something specific. So before I have to write a blog, I go and make myself a cup of coffee. So I have a minute or two to just settle my thoughts, focus in on what I'm doing, and then I can do the best with what's at hand. And a part of that is also putting off the notifications on my computer and making myself unavailable on my phone, so that there are no distractions coming through. I can sit and focus. So that's all a part of that. And the other thing that routines give us is they make the space for us to take care of ourselves. And that's something that we've spoken a little bit about in the Business Basics with Sasha Foster, where we really need to create a work-life balance to prevent ourselves from burning out, and to prevent things like compassion fatigue. And yeah, we're prone to so many things. We become hard on ourselves, we start to feel depressed. So making sure that we take care of ourselves first help us to bring our best to our patients. So when you're planning your day, planning your week, scheduling, blocking time, thinking about how you're going to work with your patients, making sure that you have enough time to eat during the day, to eat healthy food, not just something because there's no time. Make sure that you make the time to eat something healthy, that you make enough time to get a good night's sleep, that you make time to exercise. These things are the things that are going to help you, and anything else that you need, right? That you need in your life. Jen Repack said that every dog needs a job and every person needs a craft in her podcast a little while ago. And I love that. We all need something that is our own. So sometimes for me, that has been crochet. I've crocheted like big carpets. I love that. Sometimes it's working with my horses. So whatever it is in your life in this moment, you need something that's yours, that you can focus on, that just takes you out of your head a little bit and helps you be calm, be yourself. So every person needs a craft or a hobby or something that's yours. And you need a plan for that. You need to make sure that your day allows that, because otherwise it won't happen. It's not important enough. It doesn't come up high on our priority radar unless we make it. So that one's really, really important for us to put first.
And the thing is that there will always be work to do. And this is one thing that I learned. So like, I used to think like, I'm not going to do an exercise today, or I'm not going to do this today because I just want to finish this work. But then tomorrow there was more work. And so what had happened is, especially around the exercise thing, like every day I was actually making excuses that I was needing to work. But then I just decided, okay, I need to have 2 days a week in the week where I exercise. And there is work to do, yes, but this is a priority and I prioritize it. So there's always going to be things to do, and you're just going to need to prioritize your own self. And if you don't, like Ané says, and Sasha, is that you end up getting burnout. There's only so much that we can do. And you're also no good when you're completely overwhelmed and you're exhausted. You're no good to your patients at all. So I think that we've covered basically everything. So I hope that you guys have learned from this. And before I end, I just want to say one thing, that as Ané, you were chatting about those morning routines. And I'm going to admit this, I had such a bad habit. One of the things I used to do was be on social media. I'd go to bed and I'd lie in bed and I'd be on social media. The first thing I used to do is I used to wake up, open my eyes, and go straight onto social media to see who had commented, who had whatever. And that's something I must say, which, and my thought process was I would use this morning time when the kids and my husband are sleeping now, just to get the social media done. but it wasn't actually the priority in the morning. It's not what I should have been doing. So I'd spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and I would be doing social media on my phone, but a lot of consuming, right? Not creating. I'd just be consume. And it's not a great way to start the day, guys. Really, it isn't. And so now what I do is I actually do like 10 to 15 minutes of stretching or exercising. I sit down and I write. I've got a little book. I write down all the things that I am grateful for every single morning. And I also have an affirmations list. So all the things that I'm hoping to achieve in my life, and the things that I am trying to improve on, I write all my little affirmations down. And that is my morning routine. So yeah, if you guys are stuck on social media, don't let it control you guys. I don't have it on my phone anymore now. It's off my phone because it's an addiction, right? It is. So yeah, I hope that all the tips and advice that we have shared has really, really helped you guys. And I want you guys to think about all that. And if you haven't done it, go check out that time maximization training. There's lots of other stuff and there's some downloads there, which I think would be really, really useful for all of you.
Thank you so much, Meg. I'm glad that you're not doing the social media first and last thing anymore. Good job.
Cheers, guys. Have an awesome day.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. And please, if you get a moment, head over to Stitcher or iTunes and leave me a review. It's a really lonely job being a podcaster, and so the only time I get to hear from you or know that you're out there is when I get a review. And know that I read every single one of your reviews. So to those of you that have left reviews, I want to say a very, very big thank you. Every time we get a review, it really helps to get the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast out there to all the vet rehabbers all over the world. All right, vet rehabbers, so if you are looking for more continuing education in the field of veterinary rehabilitation, head over to onlinepethouth.com. Go be awesome, guys.